When are we going to get serious, Candy, about the debt?
We got to deal with this big long-term debt problem, or it will deal with us.
But the nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget says, Secretary Clinton, under your plan, debt would rise to 86% of GDP over the next 10 years. Mr. Trump, under your plan, they say it would rise to 105% of GDP over the next 10 years. The question is, why are both of you ignoring this problem?
And there's a good news that there's a consensus to really reduce this debt by $4 trillion over 10 years or 12 years. But that's a pretty good consensus, and that's a deep number.
And that's the problem. Our country is technically bankrupt. But it's very simple. The government works like your house works. Our government has promised far more money than it actually has or probably ever will have.
We have to live within our means. We have to reduce our deficit, and we have to get back on a path that will allow us to pay down our debt.
As we know, $14 trillion in debt is no light matter. We have got to solve the debt crisis in this country, and we have got to demonstrate some responsibility here in Washington so this economy can get going again. We understand America is broke.
What is this building up deficits, heaping mountains of debt on the next generation? Not a good idea, and so there is an urgent need for us to contain the growth of the deficit.
Our free stuff today is being paid for by taking money from our children and borrowing from China.
Our rising debt levels poses a national security threat, and it poses a national security threat in two ways. It undermines our capacity to act in our own interests, and it does constrain us where constraint may be undesirable.
The Congressional Budget Office projected in April that the Republican tax law would add nearly $1.9 trillion to the deficit from 2018 to 2028.
$2.7 trillion does a great deal to reduce our debt burden.
As to how you would go about tackling the deficit problem in this country.
I think it's not just an economic issue. I think it's a moral issue. I think it's frankly not moral for my generation to keep spending massively more than we take in, knowing those burdens are going to be passed on to the next generation. And they're going to be paying the interest and the principal all their lives. And the amount of debt we're adding at $1 trillion a year is simply not moral.
Is to take out a credit card from the Bank of China in the name of our children, driving up our national debt so that we now have over $9 trillion of debt that we are going to have to pay back. $30,000 for every man, woman, and child. That's irresponsible. It's unpatriotic.
We're broke. We're broke. America's broke.
And yet it all takes money. You know the numbers, $1.7 trillion debt, a national deficit of $11 trillion. At what point do we run out of money?
Well, we're out of money now. 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 Money now.